out for something you got to feel. Or clutching to what you thought was real. Kicking at a dead horse pleases you. No way of showing your gratitude. So many things you don't want to do. What is and what have you got to lose? What the hell? What the hell? What is it you think you're gonna find? Hypocrite, hypocrite. Boredom's a tip to the boring mind. Struggle with it. It's what you find. Struggle with it. You're ruined. Struggle with it. You seal your own coffin. The struggling within.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Pirate Radio. I am your host, who needs still no introduction whatsoever. Welcome to everyone who is hanging out. Don't have a guest, so I'm going to have the comments displayed, so make them pretty vulgar, if you will. Tonight's topic is apparently very, very, I don't know, problematic for some, very, man, I don't even know how to explain it. It's just, it's like white hot. I guess first thing should go out is congratulations to Zoran Mamdani for winning the New York City mayor's race. You now have at least a socialist running. Yeah, he's a member of the DSA, Democratic Socialists of America Party, so you have a socialist running New York City. At least now they have a face that represents what actually has been going on for a long time. And yes, it's very dark in here because this is a dark subject, everyone. And I'm still trying to work out the lighting, get where I like it or don't like it or whatever. So just get to deal with it. So if you're listening to this and don't have any idea what I'm talking about, just disregard the last, 15 seconds of what you heard. Anyway. So if you have at all been listening to anyone, whether it's on the left, the right, the middle, unless you've been living under a rock or not viewing social media or anything like that, there are two sides existing simultaneously that are, I wouldn't even call them, they're not even opposition so much as they are mortal enemies. The thing you have going on is, apparently Nick Fuentes is a thing. I've talked about Nick before. I've never met Nick, don't know Nick, don't really consume anything that he's ever done other than when he started to go on more mainstream shows, which is, I'm fine with that. I have no problem hearing someone else's views because then I get to judge those views as being either retarded, good, or somewhere in the middle, or fantastic. I mean, it's how you want to view it. But I am all for, if you have a show, no matter how big or how small, you can do whatever the hell you want with it. And people can deal with it, and they can like it or they cannot. And that's kind of what we do here in the United States. That's what speech is. That's what the market really is. If you don't like a certain product, you don't buy a certain product. Or if you like a certain product, someone makes a better product, you could have either both, or you can upgrade to the other one. It's up to you on what you want to do, because this is a free market system. Well, it's supposed to be. We're not going to get into all that today, but we might touch on it a little bit, just because the nature of this kind of almost demands it in part. But I'm going to try to stay as much on topic as I can. I even kind of prepared for this one, so you're in for a treat here. So you have Zoran Mamdani, who is obviously on the left. How far left is he is still kind of yet to be determined. It depends on who you listen to. And I've juxtaposed him with Nick Fuentes, who is on the right. He is on a quite far on the right. How far is he? Again, that is up to, I guess it's left open to interpretation, judgment, however you want to look at it. But both of these guys are commanding space, or they're commanding a crowd in their separate spaces here. So obviously Mamdani's popular, at least in New York City. Probably a little larger than that, because I don't think you win the mayoral race of New York City without some like institutional funding. And by institutional, I mean like not from a government source necessarily, but from the local institutions, banks, businesses, people, groups, PACs, whatever you want to call it. You have to get some sort of support from mainstream organizations to ascend politically, especially to an office that high or that prestigious. Again, we can debate the prestige of the current state of New York and their mayor, but it is a prestigious position that's been held by some of the biggest names in the history of the United States. So there's that. Juxtapose that with a guy like Nick Fuentes, who, like him, love him, hate him, whatever it is, indifferent, he has amassed himself quite the crowd prior to his being legitimized on certain podcasts like Tucker Carlson or the Part of the Problem with Dave Smith. And I think he's also been on Candace Owens' show prior. And, despite what your feelings of those things are, he was not some like unknown figure that they randomly came across and were like, I really need to figure out what this young man's about. So they both have crowds. They both have some sort of grassroots support, institutional support, but they also have been in the spotlight and active for some time while they've been very, very young. As a 42-year-old man, I look back at my 20s, and as I'm sure most of you do, there are a lot of things that you said in your 20s, possibly even 20 minutes ago, that if they were to be broadcast to the mainstream, it would not go over so well for you. And obviously, things you do in your 20s, teens, whatever it is, you're probably not proud of a lot of them. You've probably adapted your positions. I would hope by the time you're 40 years old, I would hope you think a little bit differently than you did when you were, say, 23, 20 years old. If not, then you're a complete and utter fool, and no one should ever listen to you anyway. You should not be allowed to vote. You should have that privilege revoked. You shouldn't be in charge of a hot dog cart if you haven't gotten to that point. So regardless of your feelings of these people, they have these mainstream movements. Okay, they have large movements. Now, what is causing the movements of both of these guys? At the very, very basic level, if you take Fuentes and Mamdani and you distill it down, they at a basic level have a populist movement within their group. Okay, they have a lot of people who are resonating with their message, and their message is pretty basic and pretty distilled down. It's pretty small as far as how it works. It's about you. That's their message. It's about you and your life, your everyday life, your day-to-day, how things go, your family, your friends, what have you. It is a very basic, small-level message that resonates. One of the key factors, apparently one of the key factors in at least thrusting Mamdani to the grand stage to which he was then elected, I guess there was a mayoral debate in which the other candidates, or I guess it was a primary debate amongst the Democrat candidates, in which all of them were pledging that they not only were going to Israel, but it was a thing of how soon they were going to go to Israel. And when it come to Mamdani, and he said, I'm just going to stay here in New York City because that's the city I represent or want to represent, and I represent the people, and I will represent the Jewish people of this city. And that got him thrown all the way up there. Okay, so there's that part. The populism does exist within them, within their movements. I'm not as familiar with Fuentes, but there is this kind of populist movement that is the Make America America again, kick out the immigrants, um, you know, he said a lot of things in the past that I'm not going to hold him to like account for, mainly because one, the odds of him graduating to a much more softened, educated, wise position are fairly high, but also because I've never actually like consumed his product, if you will. That sounded fucking gay. I've never consumed his show or his writings, or I don't even know if he writes, but the things he said in his 20s I was never privy to. So I've seen the clickbaity clips, and I don't like to hold people to account for clips taken out of context. Yes, he said some vile things. They could have been in a joking manner. I don't know. I don't really mind a very vulgar, dark joke personally. You may not. That's a you problem, not a me problem. But anyway, he has a populist movement that talks about basically America being American again and being for Americans. And if you're here illegally, get the hell out. I can agree with that. If you're not going to assimilate to American culture and norms and our society, get the hell out. Can also agree with that. I don't think that our mass migration of just anyone from anywhere, especially countries we bombed, bringing them here and just giving them, 3 hots and a cot, if you will, has really worked out well for us. I see that Arthur commented a big factor Mamdani winning was 21st century mass immigration. 8 out of 10 voters were foreign born. Communism, not inherited. Yep. I mean, I can agree. Same thing. Foreign born, 80% of Mamdani voters. Yeah. I mean, it's not working out well, okay? Not a big fan of Mamdani's positions, his policies. But we're going to get into, I'm not here to dissect Fuentes or Mamdani down to the man and down to the short and curlies, if you will. I'm here to dissect the movement and how we got here and how these characters became who they became, because they are not the problem, unfortunately. You can't just point to Nick Fuentes and say, man, if he just weren't able to talk, or if we exiled him to St. Elba's Island, then all of our problems would be solved. No, they would not be solved, because their movement is not one person or two persons deep. It's a much bigger movement. They're on polar opposites. How did we get to that point? It's very easy, as the boomers want to do. They hit you with the same kind of tired puns, or excuse me, they hit you with the same tired label. Yes, the pun is intended. While waiting for the table at Cracker Barrel, which, a month ago or 2 months ago, they were so up in arms about because it turned gay and this, that, or the other. They got rid of the cracker and the barrel on the label. But, they're sitting there right now waiting on a table, posting on Facebook, talking about how everyone's communist or they don't want to work for nothing. Then they go back to they just want their own form of socialism, this, that, or the other, because they don't want to work, all with no shame, while they rail about their COLA adjustments for the Social Security check, and without having one mirror ever in front of them as they say these things. It's so easy to blame the boomers, which I am much more... I'm very apt to do. I've done it in the past. Not a big fan of the boomers. My parents are boomers. I think they're some of the good ones, but I probably am also kind of biased in that opinion. But both of these guys, Mamdani and Fuentes, are catching most of the heat and flack from the Gen Xers and the millennials. I am what is known as an elder millennial. Guilty. I seem to identify a little more with the Gen X crowd. Growing up in middle America, Oklahoma, the flyover states, things took a long time to actually get here, and I like to say that also with the generational gap, it took a while to actually get here. So I can call myself a Gen Xer, but the thing is that I see this label thrown around to both Fuentes and to Mamdani, in that they are both horrible bigots who have had horrible things said, or they have said horrible things. They're both horrible bigots, have said horrible racist things, and want to enslave a certain group of people. If they were given the chance or the power, they would do so. And then this label carries on to their supporters, saying that they are horrible bigots. It's kind of guilt by association, what have you. But really, you're missing the complete point here. And we can go and look into a historical context of kind of where we're sitting right now. See if I can formulate this out loud and with a camera on me. So, if you look at post-World War I Europe, there are a lot of correlating things that I see from there to now in the United States. You had a problem post-World War I Europe in which you had monarchs clinging to power who were basically bankrupt, bankrupted by the war, bankrupted by, I guess you could say, not in embracing industrialization and more of a trade arrangement with other countries soon enough. They were basically on their way out, whether they realized it or not. And you basically, once those monarchs got weak, blood was in the water, and you had a very huge rise of communism. Karl Marx had written his book, I don't know, 50 years earlier, whatever it was, the Communist Manifesto, in which the workers would rise up and seize the means of production. So, what you get is you get a vying for power between communists and fascists. Now, communists and fascists are morally opposed to one another. I understand that one of the boomer and soft brain takes is that, oh, they're all just socialists anyway, aren't they the same? No, they absolutely are fucking not. Communists and fascists are literally morally opposed to each other. It's almost like Jew versus Muslim. They might look similar when you look at some of the broad strokes, but when you get into the fine details and the minutia, that's where shit gets real, and they absolutely hate each other. Diametrically opposed. Okay, it's oil and water, it's cats and dogs, it's things like that. So you had in the thing that got Russia out of World War I was the communist revolution, the Russian Revolution within Russia, led by a communist going after the Tsar. Now, you also had in Italy, you had a fascist takeover by Benito Mussolini, basically the guy who helped invent fascism and definitely implemented it in Europe first. But a fascist versus communist doesn't really give us, it gives us the broad strokes of where we're at. But if we really want to get into where I think we currently are, or at least on the precipice of, in the United States, we have to distill it down even further to the Bolsheviks versus the Nazis. Okay? So after the Russian Revolution, the Bolsheviks, which were one of many communist groups who were vying for power within Russia, the Bolsheviks under Vladimir Lenin, Leon Trotsky, and to a lesser extent Joseph Stalin, seized power and became the power group in Russia. They then, once they had power and they had all of the military and police behind them, they started to wipe out all of the other commies. Okay? So you had red-on-red violence. The Bolsheviks took power, seized power. Now, the belief at the time, especially within Russia and the Bolsheviks, was that Germany was the next one to fall to communism and become communist under the Bolsheviks. The Bolsheviks made one grave tactical error, or they made many tactical errors, but one of their most grave tactical errors was they decided that they would, initially they were going to let Tsar Nicholas II and his family be exiled, escape with their lives. They then butchered them in the streets. This became a very obvious precursor to what would happen if you were a ruling family. You basically had this to look forward to. So, Germany, under the Weimar Republic, had a president, whatever, another socialist. You then get the rise of the Nazis, the National Socialists under Hitler and Goebbels and Goering and all of the evil bastards that we know and love. We don't love them. All the evil bastards that we know from history who took over Germany and created the Nazi Party, took over Germany. They also had a cleansing, okay? But this is where you get, they're diametrically opposed to each other. And the reason that both of these countries were ready to fall the way that they fell is they basically were bankrupted by World War I. Not only were they bankrupted, they had lost World War I. The Russians didn't technically lose World War I, but they certainly didn't win. The Germans had lost World War I. So both of those countries we're experiencing post-industrialization woes, which is your cities now have some means, have some money, have some wealth, but your rural communities, which an agrarian society like pretty much every country at the time was, every civilized country had large agrarian populations, the farmers now can't farm. Industrialization has basically killed their farms. They now are either out of work or have to try to find work with a skill they don't have in a place they don't understand. They don't understand a factory. If you're 50 years old in Germany in 1922 and you're like, I'm going to go work at the whatever factory, you're like, I don't even know what this is. I've been using a mule and a sharpened piece of metal attached to wood to plow a field. I don't know what this is. So this is where you get these things. I see so many people want to distill this down to just both sides, whether it's Mamdani's side or it's whether it's left, right, Mamdani, Fuentes. They distill this down and just say, well, they both just hate Israel, and that's why they're anti-Semites, and that's what they have in common, and they just want to kill all the Jews and do this, that, or the other. That's not what it is at all. You can go and look at Nazi Germany. It's probably one of the best examples of what people do under desperation. If you're starving, if you don't have a job, if you don't know how you're going to feed your family, if people are being killed in the streets, the trains aren't running, let alone running on time. It is mind-boggling to me that it's mind-boggling to me that the current state of the United States citizen, by and large, the average citizen, can't understand a shit sandwich in which you have to take a bite, but you might as well take a bite of the least shitty part of that shit sandwich. So if you're in the Weimar Republic and inflation is out of control, there's the old, I guess it's a joke, of the Weimar Republic in Germany, of a guy goes into a cafe, or goes into a coffee shop cafe, asks the guy behind the counter, how much is a cup of coffee? He says 8 marks, Deutsche Marks at the time, 8 marks. He says, great, I'll have a cup of coffee. Drinks a cup of coffee, orders another cup of coffee, then asks for the bill, gets the bill, and the bill is now $25, and he goes, I thought you said the cup of coffee was $8. He said that you should have ordered both of them at the same time. This is the kind of inflation that Germany was experiencing under the Weimar Republic after the Kaiser had abdicated power. Inflation's out of control. Not only is your inflation out of control, which means your money is basically worthless. You had people burning piles of Deutschmarks, who were rich people who had marks. They were burning them in a furnace for warmth during the German winter. So you can imagine, as you go down that socioeconomic ladder to your poverty, or you're at least middle class at the time, things are tough in the streets. And then you have people vying for power to take over the government. It's not like the police were keeping peace. You had commies killing commies in the streets. You had National Socialist fascists, or fascists at the time, killing each other in the streets, killing commies killing fascists. It was just crazy, crime-ridden, violent place. So you can understand, if you're a German citizen, especially if you're a German citizen whose father fought in the war, fought valiantly, fought brilliantly. Germany almost won World War I, mind you. Had it not been for the starvation and the blockade, they certainly probably would have won World War I. Certainly would have beat the French. They pretty much already had the French whipped. But if not for the blockade and the starvation, Germany can continue to fight and certainly had all of the means to win. So they're already starving. There's very, very many stories of the starvation of German citizens during the war. So post-war, the Treaty of Versailles is so harsh that they're paying reparations to France and to the United Kingdom, money they don't have. So they're printing the money, obviously, which is causing their inflation, and they're just giving it over, to which is basically useless, but it's all punitive. France didn't need the money. It's all punitive. So you can understand, under these scenarios, if someone comes to power and they get a little bit of power, like Adolf Hitler didn't just one day become Der Fuhrer. There was a lead up to it. He had a plan. He talked about the plan. People kind of bought into the plan. He got a little bit of power, was appointed chancellor. All of a sudden, the trains are running on time. There's food. And the crime has basically been cut in half, or at least gone down. I don't know the exact crime statistics, but you could walk down the street without fear of being shot by a goddamn communist. You can understand, if you're a German citizen at that time, again, He's a National Socialist, okay? What that basically means is he's a populist for Germany. That's what he is. He is giving you all of the things that you want to hear. Pride in your country. You need your country. We are Germans. We are the whole of Germany. We are the best. This will be the Fourth Reich. This will be the fourth coming of the greater Germany. This is the Rhineland. We are all Germans. The thing that people so misunderstand about Adolf Hitler is that they'll say, oh, he was an Austrian. Yes, he was an Austrian. He fucking loved Germany. Germany was not a unified country up until, God, the late 1800s, somewhere in there. They still were kind of a carryover of like a territorial kind of kingdom, if you will, in which had a great emperor who then was, you had the Kaiser who was the emperor over minor Kaisers of different districts of Bavaria and other states, if you will, within Germany. Hitler loved it all. He loved it. So you can understand if you're a German, under German rule, you want to be German. You don't want to be French. You don't want to be Belgian. You don't want to be Russian. You don't want to be an Austrian. You don't want to be an Italian, a Brit, an American, a Chinaman, a Greek, anything. You're German. You love Germany. There is a deep pride within Germany. Hitler was a populist movement. In the beginning, the Bolsheviks in Russia were a populist movement. This is what the people wanted. You can't win a revolution without people in ranks and guys to do the things you need to be done. And it was basically a grassroots Russian revolution without outside influence. Same thing in Germany. This is a German revolution to restore a greater Germany. So both of those are populist movements. Now, the Nazis are a right movement, and the Bolsheviks, the commies, are a left movement. You can see the parallels here, okay? Now, if you're in Germany in 1935 through 1945, especially 1935 when Hitler really takes power, you can understand why you would be on board with the economic policy, the pro-German policy, the we're going to build infrastructure, we're going to have safety, where the trains are going to run on time, we're going to have all of these things that are great for the German citizen. So when you get the anti-Semitic stuff, when you get the Jews are the problem stuff, it's not that you said, I'm all for this, hook, line, sinker, I love it all. It's that you went, well, it's a shit sandwich. Let's take a bite of the least shitty part. Maybe I'll just get bread and I'll miss out on the bad stuff. So at least I will be fed, I will be safe, I'll have a job, and I'll have pride in my country, which they had pride in their country less than 20 years prior, which are their fathers that had massive pride in their country to go fight and die on what they called the Western Front, because if you're in Germany fighting, go west, you're fighting on the Western Front against France and the United Kingdom and other countries, eventually the United States. So you can understand why, by and large, the German people, who, by all accounts, the vast majority of Germans didn't hate Jews and were not pro-Holocaust by any stretch of the imagination, but you can understand in which they would give that guy the power that he so wanted but didn't deserve. You can understand that. And if you can't understand that, then you're a smooth-brained fucking retard who should never be allowed to vote ever again in an American election. You don't have to like it, but that's where it is. So this is kind of the dichotomy that I see within our country right now. You're not necessarily Nazis and Bolsheviks, but this kind of explains kind of where you're getting. So you're getting this delineation between the two groups where they don't necessarily believe in all of the things that their respective leader, if you will, whether it's Mamdani or Fuentes, is saying, but the other part of this, both of those revolutions were led by young people. All revolutions are pretty much led by like college-age young people, by and large. So you're getting this dichotomy and this delineation in the United States of left and right, whether it's the Mamdani camp, whether it's the Fuentes camp, where they're going, I like most of what this guy is saying. I like his vision for the greater, the populist movement, whatever that exactly is, left or right. And you're kind of just going, well, they said like Fuentes has said this stuff about Hitler. I'm not really down with that, but, he maybe he doesn't really mean that or whatever. And the same thing with Mamdani. Of course, the mic wants to go out. Fan fucking tastic. He said any number of things like that, which, right, you're not really into it, so I get it. Is the sound back now, guys? Bueller. Hopefully the sound's back. If the sound isn't back, well, I guess I'm going to yell into a quiet mic for the next 30 minutes because I got a lot of shit to say still. Okay, hopefully. Okay, we're good. We're back! Anyway, still with the technical difficulties, goddamn. Just wouldn't be a show if I didn't have technical difficulties, apparently. Producing! Anyway, where the fuck was I? So I can understand from a base level kind of when the alternative is the status quo, I guess I can kind of understand where these guys are coming from. So that leads me to the bigger point of, like, how did we get here? How did we get in the United States, on the land of milk and honey, freedom and capitalism and all the great things that we have? How did we get to the point at which there's a left-right dichotomy that is mirroring the Bolsheviks versus the Nazis? How did we get here? Well, let's see. Again, if you remember that most revolutions in both of these guys' camp, Mamdani's and Fuentes, are going to be the younger generation. They're going to be somewhere in the Gen Z, maybe some millennials, maybe Gen Alpha, somewhere in there. Probably a lot of Gen Alpha. I didn't look up I think Gen Alpha is like 2012 to, probably still going on. But with the amount of information that's out there, and you can hit, whether it's TikTok or Rumble or YouTube or X, god damn it, I can't believe we call it X, on Twitter, Facebook, whatever it is, there's any number of places that you can hit, that you can find these clips, and you can find little hopefully it's back again. So if I'm doing it at my age, then they're definitely doing it at their age. So that's where everything's coming from. So you got to look at what the younger generation has gone through. Basically, if you look at it like the post 9/11 generation, or the post 9/11 generation. I guess us millennials would be the 9/11 generation. I don't know. But basically, you could have been alive during 9/11. I don't know how much it meant to you if you were 3. I think Fuentes was like 2 or 3. Mamdani was, he had just gotten here. Mamdani got to the United States from Uganda in like 97 or 98. I'm sure somehow, some way 9/11 affected Mamdani, but I don't know how pro-American he was at the time or even now. But it's a world-changing event, no matter what it is, it's a world-changing event at the very least. So you have this post-9/11 generation. You have the coming of age post-9/11 at the very least. Becoming a man, becoming a woman, growing up, high school, all the things. So what happened post-9/11? Well, you had a huge fucking crash. That's after your dad or mom went to war, or at least someone. I mean, if you yourself didn't go to war, you know someone who did. They either went to Afghanistan, Iraq, or somewhere else, usually those two. Everybody, as far as I know, knows at least one, if not a dozen people who went to Afghanistan and Iraq. So that's going to affect you. We go to 20-year wars that lead to nothing. We get into these regime change wars in Syria, in Libya, in other places where it's like, okay, why are we there at a certain point? You have to start asking that question. But if you're 10 to 15 years old and you're like, well, 9/11 happened and we're still in Afghanistan, what are we doing? My dad's on his 10th tour, or my dad got killed, or he got blown up, or he got whatever, and they come back home. If you went to war in 2001, by 2008, generally, you were back stateside just in time to lose your house to a global economic crisis caused by the big banks and your federal government, your Congress, working in conjunction together, working with the Fed to kick the can down the road, and now you're being kicked out of your home, or your buddy and his family are being kicked out of their home, or whatever. So you have a global financial crisis. So do we not remember the Occupy Wall Street movement and the Tea Party movement? Those things existed as well. Those were very young people. I was actually at one of the Tea Party meetups in San Antonio in front of the Alamo. I went to it, had the day off, went, was a cool event, was fun, what have you. So how did we get here? Well, that's one thing. But don't worry, got the sound back. Anyway, so we're looking, it's the economy. You can say inflation is down because the CPI was 3% this past month in October of 2025, and it was 4% in October of 2024. And you can say, well, inflation's down 1%. No, it's not. It's up over 7%. I'm not a compounding calculator inside my head, but it's up over 7%. And as you keep going back and back and back to when this round of inflation started in 2020 with the bailout, the COVID response, if you will, by Congress passed one of the biggest spending bills in history. That's where it all started. So God knows what the actual inflation rate is. And while we've been doing that, yes, we got out of Afghanistan. That's great. We just took $10 billion and moved it to Ukraine. Now we took this money and we've moved it to Israel as well, and we're funding their war machine. Whether you give a damn about either of those countries and their specific wars, this, that, or the other, you have to admit that it's bankrupting our country and it's creating a shittier country for the younger generation. So what they're going to do, I mean, we've all heard how hard it is to buy a home for the younger generation. Okay, I bought a home fairly easily, but I did it 15 years ago, 13 years ago, whatever. You know, it was right after the market had basically crashed. I bought the house I'm sitting in right now. I bought it. It was real estate owned. Bank of America had taken possession of the house because they'd gone through the short sale, the foreclosure. They'd set on the market trying to get rid of it through foreclosure. At a certain point, Bank of America held the goddamn deed to this property, which I'm sitting in right now. So you look at the economy, you look at the housing market. Okay, I can't afford a home. If the average price of a house right now is something like $250,000, $300,000, okay, that's insane. The interest rates are somewhere in the neighborhood of 6 to 7%. That's wild. Before we get into like, you know, okay, so you're going to have to put 20% down to avoid escrow. Okay, so you need me to put down how much? $60,000? Somewhere in the neighborhood of $50,000, $60,000? Who the fuck has that kind of money sitting around at 25? And if you have $50,000, $60,000 sitting around at 25 years old, buying a home, you probably already own a home. Your parents probably gifted you one or something like that. You're not in the dire financial straits of not being able to have home ownership. Okay, let's say you get approved for a loan at age 25 or 30 for a 30-year mortgage, 0% down. No money down. Maybe you pay the closing costs. Maybe you're wrapped up in the financing. I don't know. Now you're going to have escrow. You're going to have all this other stuff. Once it's all said and done, you know, $300,000 at 6%. I don't know. What do you do? What are you supposed to do? And we sit there and we go, oh, they just don't want to work hard and pay your student loans back and do this and do that. Don't go to Starbucks and save your money. Okay, I grew up in a country where $8 on coffee was a fucking good thing. It was a baller move. It's like, yeah, we're the United States. We're so wealthy. We're so prosperous. Yeah, I could buy coffee down at the Quick Trip for 50 cents, 75 cents, a dollar, depending on the size. But no, man, I'm going to Starbucks. I'm going to the fancy place. I'm going to spend top dollar on coffee that's really not that good, but they're going to froth it and do all this other gay shit to it, and then I'm going to buy that. That's America. It's a fucking flex to buy $8 worth of coffee a day. That's a flex. You should be happy, boomers, that a generation after you has so much wealth. They're just like, yep, $8. Guess what? $5 tip. I spent $13 in this motherfucker. Yes, it's a flex of wealth. But no, all the boomers and now the Gen Xers and the Ben Shapiros of the world want to be like, you just need to be more frugal. If I save $8 a day, how many days does it take me to get to 2,500, Ben? You dick. So you can sit there and you can say, well, they just want socialism, or they hate Israel because they hate Jews. Or maybe everybody left and right just looks at it and goes, hey, can we stop printing money, first of all, which is not printed? Can we stop creating money out of thin air, sending it to God knows where, while creating inflation back at home, devaluing the currency, debasing the currency, which is backed by jack and shit, other than military power and military might? Notice the only people complaining about a government shutdown are the elites and people who are on SNAP benefits, allegedly. But when it comes to actual normal everyday Americans, they're just like, well, at least they're not spending any more money that we don't have and putting us all back, I don't know, dozens more years. And it's a real scary fact. And I say this is a fact. I don't know this to be fact, but in my mind, it's a goddamn fact. It's a real scary fact that the only reason we're probably not bombing Venezuela right now is because the government is shut down and there is no money to actually go bomb the bastards. Another goddamn war we're going to get into for what? We won't get the oil, guys. That was the promise with Iraq. We didn't get the oil then either. We got a lot of dead people, and we got a lot of goddamn debt, but we didn't get the oil. We didn't get anything out of it. What did we get out of Iraq? A lot of cool GWAT guns and stuff? Sure. What do we get out of Iraq? The craziest part is the candidate that always wins for president is the anti-war candidate. It's the stop the war candidate that always seems to win in the presidency. Can anyone explain, in the comments or otherwise, or think in your head if you're listening to this later, can anyone explain why, when we're $38 trillion in debt and growing, that we need to spend one nickel on any foreign government, be it military or other aid at all? Why would we do that? How does that benefit us? This shit gets even deeper, okay? So I went down a goddamn rabbit hole because if you're going to call me an anti-Semite, whatever, I'm not. But since you've already dropped the label on me anyway, I might as well at least go and do the stats and look into it. So if you're a kid, I say kid, you're 20-something years old now, you're of age, and you're either on the left or the right. You're a Mamdani or you're a Fuentes guy or gal, okay? One of the things that you know is that the wars did nothing. We screwed up Afghanistan, and we completely botched Iraq. Syria is another one. Libya, all of them. And most recently, the 12-day war, whatever we're calling it, in Iran. Okay? We've spent all of this money. All of this money. Can anyone tell me, this is Israel more briefly, more directly. So Israel is an ally of ours. There's no dispute there. But it's a one-way street. Can anyone tell me how many times the United I think that got cut off, but I'm back now. If your answer to how many times that the United States military and the IDF have fought shoulder to shoulder against a common enemy, or any enemy, I would assume a common enemy. Can't have two enemies and we're only shooting at one. How many times have the United States and the IDF fought shoulder to shoulder in combat? If you said 0 or fucking 0, you're correct. Because that's how many times the IDF has had our back. I don't care what your views on Israel are, whether if you consider Israel to be the Jews or every Israeli is a Jew, that's a foolish take. I don't consider the government of Israel or the IDF more broadly to be just the Jews. Yes, there's a lot of Jews. There's a lot of Jews in the United States military, among other militaries, I would assume, around the world, but there's a lot of Jewish folks in the United States military. There's a lot of Jewish folks in the United States. I don't see the monoliths of Israel, the Jews, because every staunch, as I said numerous times, you can Google it, you can look it up, do whatever you want to do, or you just talk to the Ben Shapiros of the world or the Dave Rubins or the whomevers who want to tell you everything about Israel is just prim and proper and all of that. They will tell you, the staunch defenders of them will tell you that 20% of that population, which is actually closer to 25%, are non-Jewish, Muslim, Arab, Christian, but basically there's 25% of that population that is non-Jewish. So if someone says something critical of the Israeli government and you say they're anti-Jew, how are they not also anti those other groups too? They'll tell you again that the Arabs have representation in the Knesset, their legislature, their parliament, and on their Supreme Court. So, yes, Israel is a majority Jewish state. Obviously, they're not 100% Jewish. So when I'm critical of Israel's government, I am not critical of Jews. I am critical of a fucking government. I don't understand why we have to pay for all of their military aid, all of their military funding. And you hear these idiots like Brandon Tatum, Officer Tatum, who wants to make fun of Marjorie Taylor Greene and say that, oh, she says something so stupid about how we are giving money to Israel. We're giving them all this military aid. And his answer, I swear to you, you can look it up on trigonometry. His answer to this was, we give them money and then they buy weapons. So we're not just giving that to them. This is one of your minds in the conservative movement. Mind you, no one is critical on the conservative side of Brandon Tatum and how stupid a thing that was to say, among other many stupid things he said in 2 hours sitting down with the trigonometry boys. He's a complete and utter fool. His mental capacity is none, but he talks about how he's a police officer all the time. Yeah, that's great. I'm sure you were a great police officer. Fantastic. Maybe you should go do the police work and leave the talking to the rest of the people who have a functional fucking brain. I don't know. But this is the elite level of the conservative movement, in which no one is saying that Brandon Tatum should be thrown out of the conservative movement, or that no one should listen to him, or that he's problematic because of the things he says. No, they want to tell you that Tucker Carlson's the problem, even though he has these conversations with people and is trying to understand these kind of movements and why a guy like Nick Fuentes has the crowd, the fans that he has, and he has the support he has. When you get 400,000 people watching a live stream on Rumble, that's insane. I didn't know there were 400,000 people on Rumble. Nick Fuentes got that. That's insane. You know, no shade at Rumble, but, you know, you'll get there one day, hopefully, but you're definitely not YouTube or Twitter or other places. Like, to get 400,000 people viewing live on Rumble, bro, that is wild. And I'm not jealous. I would love to have that, but that's just, I didn't even think that was possible. Merck, is there an agreement in which the Israelis are not to fight side by side? Yeah, apparently on their side, but there's no like treaty or anything like that. I mean, what if somebody invades Israel? Are we can't go over there? I mean, They make up this excuse, like in the Gulf War I, is like, well, they couldn't fight in the first Gulf War because none of the rest of the Arab states would have fought alongside of us. Did we fucking need them? Why are we placating the Saudis? F them. They should be kissing our ass. We should regime change them if you want to regime change someone. But this is how you get to where you get. The economy is not working for people. So you're going to cling to the closest thing, or at least someone who's talking about something that affects you directly. Like, you can be super critical of Zohan Mamdani and the things he said about, like, state or city-run grocery stores or free subway fare or bus fare or this, that, or the other. And yes, those are horrible policies. You know, seizing the means of production of a place that has no means of production is pretty wild in and of itself. But you have to understand, if you're living in New York City and you're 25 years old, you know, we can and have been critical of people who signed up for student loans and are like, oh, I need student loan forgiveness or to be canceled or this, that, or the other. Yes, they're fools. They didn't get it. But you have to understand, if you're that person and you're just being crippled under your student loan debt, the idea of buying a house, the idea of even having, you know, a decent apartment and having anything, you know, above and beyond what you currently have just seems like unobtainium at that point. So you have to understand where they're coming from. So when someone goes, instead of a mayor going, I'm going to go to Israel because I love the Jews, you have a mayoral candidate that goes, well, I'm just going to like make the bus fare free or subways free or less or whatever. So if you're a guy or gal who uses the subway or the bus to go to work, you're like, God damn, I don't know what a subway costs. Let's say it costs $5. Well, hey, boomers, there's my $5 a day I can save, right? Right? You don't mind paying for it, do you? I'm saving money. Oh, now you're against me saving money. So if when it's money to go to work, you're all for it. When it's money for coffee, I'm an evil person and I just need to pay my student loans and shut the fuck up, huh? Okay, that makes a whole lot of nonsense. If you can't understand where these people are coming from, and I probably need to try to find someone of that world. I don't even know anyone of that world, even the Fuentes world of like, what are you thinking? What are you know, are you all in? Are you half in? Are you just somewhat in? But again, it's a populist movement. If you can help out the people in the middle, everyone at the top is fine. Everyone at the very, very bottom is fine because they're living off the government teat, if you will. If you can show a way for the guys and gals in the middle to make progress in their own daily life, you're going to have a huge amount of the population who's going to overlook certain other things and just say, yeah, I mean, at least I get that. Because the punishment is already there. Like, again, it's the shit sandwich analogy of like, I can continue to get punished as the guy and gal in the middle who's just eking out a life that's not that great in my eyes, and I want so much more. Or I can vote or follow this guy whose movement and message is to let's punish the other people. I mean, this is kind of how Bernie Sanders gathered up so much support. It was like, we're gonna punish the millionaires and billionaires. You notice he doesn't say millionaires anymore. Kind of funny now, isn't it? But if you're creating these populist movements, as vile as they might seem and as vile as they might be, if you can put the punitive part on someone else instead of yourself, that's so much better. This is it might not be morally right, but it explains a lot. You know, and you can look at it too of most of us know that climate change is bullshit, right? Whether it's the left or the right, they'll explain climate change in certain ways. And one of the things they use this on left and right, coming at it from different sides. One is they're so right, the other is they're so dumb. But their argument for like the decline in birth rate is because of climate change. Because why would you bring children into a world that's going to not exist in 12 years, in 12 years, and in 12 years, and in 12 years, and to perpetuity? Why would you bring a child into that so they just die, you know, of asphyxiation or burned to death or chilled to death or whatever? If you're on the left, why would you do that? And then on the right, they say the same damn thing of like, oh, these kids don't want to bring, they don't want to have kids and have a family because they're afraid of climate change and it's so foolish and this, that, and the other. That's not what it is, guys. That's not what it is. It's the economy, stupid. If you're barely eking out a life right now, why would you want to bring a child into your barely eking out life, assuming that you're even planning and wanting that? If as you grew up, you saw the excesses and the problems of foreign wars, debasing of the currency, market crashes, if that's what you saw as you grew up, the idea that you would want to bring a child into that is almost, you can almost understand that. You can pretty much understand that. Why would you want to do that? And now, on top of all the stuff you've seen, you're barely eking out a life in a major city and being told that the economy is so great and America's so wonderful and all of this. You know, I've talked about this before of like the American dream wasn't ever, it's almost like the American dream was left behind on September the 10th, 2001. That we stopped talking about it. We stopped passing that on. We stopped promising that to the next generation. It was all about the terrorists. It was all about the Kardashians. It was all about cribs. It was all about this stuff. It was all about your education and you need a college degree. It was all about the other things. It's all Iran's fault that you can't afford an apartment or a house. It's all Maduro's fault in Venezuela, your economic situation. If only that bastard weren't in power, you would be able to afford the $8 cup of Starbucks or whatever. It's all everyone else's fault. We don't ever look back. You know, Trump got elected on a populist message, and every time he gets into office, he forgets he was a populist or something. You know, a lot of this rests at the feet of Donald J. Trump. A lot of it rests at the feet of Joe Biden. A lot of this rests at the feet of George W. Bush and Barack Obama and Bill Clinton and any number of people and then any number of presidents and any number of leaders. But no one is actually trying to fix the damn thing at all. No one in political power is even talking about these things. And the one guy who talks about these things, or the one most mainstream guy who talks about these things, is called an anti-Semite. He hates Israel. He's anti-American. He's anti-conservative. He platforms Jew haters and neo-Nazis and this, that, and the other. You know, you have Dinesh D'Souza talking about how Tucker Carlson having Nick Fuentes on was a slap in the face to Charlie Kirk and this, that, and the other. And then he posts a video on X, God damn it, I said it again, on Twitter 2 days ago in which he talked about how he went and met with Richard Spencer and posted a clip. And it's like, I'm sorry, I thought that platforming neo-Nazis was anti-conservative and now you needed to be silenced. But I guess it only applies to the guy you don't like. Or the guy who has much more power than you, and now he can't be controlled, and he can't be shut up, and he can't be turned off, and he can't be fired because he owns his own shit. And he's saying things that you don't like, and he's calling you out for all of your nonsensical policies, and he's calling you out for all of your foreign policies failures, and he's calling you out for all the shit that you've backed. He's calling you out for all of the nonsense, and calling you out for all of the bullshit you've said about people that if they would just do this other thing, their lives would be better. And how all these people who are complaining about the economy are just liars. The economy is trash. Our cities are hollowed out. There's homeless fucking everywhere. The scourge of the drugs on our streets, whether it's the fentanyl or it's heroin or it's marijuana or it's whatever, it lays at the feet of the goddamn economy. We talk about universal basic income. Oh, AI is going to create all of this stuff. We're going to have universal basic income. So we're going to have to pay people like $2,000 a month. They're going to fucking die from a drug overdose because people need to have some sort of purpose. And if you're trying to find your some sort of purpose with a job where I go to work and I would like to afford a house and maybe have a small family or a big family or whatever, and every time you turn around you're getting kicked in the fucking dick by some foreign war, debasing of the currency, or some other complete and utter bullshit, how could you possibly ever expect that young person who's age 25 or younger to ever buy into the American dream? It doesn't exist for them. It never existed for them. They probably bought in, but guess what? They just get kicked in the face every time they turn around. Their money's worth dog shit. They've got student debt. If they went to college, there's no jobs here. You go work a construction job? No, because there's some goddamn illegal working it. Or if he's not illegal, if he did get citizenship, He's already locked in the clique. They're all Mexican dudes hiring Mexican dudes, man. How are you going to get a construction job? You're going to pick up shit on a construction job and trash for $8 an hour in the year of our Lord 2025? Nah, man, it's not happening. How's that going to work? The American dream doesn't work for that guy. Oh, go be a plumber's apprentice. Okay, that's great. It's still fucking $10 an hour, and you got to provide your own tools. And where are you going to go find this plumber to become a plumber's apprentice? Good luck. Go to a Votech, do this. Okay, great. I understand. Kids need to work harder. They need to find their own way in life. They need to find their own lot in life. I was fucking lost at one time, too. I had no fucking gainful employment. I was hating my life at the time. The thought of kids, my God, I'm going to die if I have a child. The thought of all of these things and just knowing that you're a fucking failure because the American dream, it's there, you just can't get to it. It's complete and utter bullshit. Then you get to a point and you realize all of the politics you talked about, voting for John McCain, voting for Mitt Romney, voting for George W. Bush, which I didn't, voting for any of these other people, voting for Ted Cruz when he first ran in Texas. Yes, I did. Voting for that other asshole whose name I can't remember. Who's the other bastard down there in Texas, the senator? Voting for that asshole. Talking about, oh, Glenn Beck's so right. Everything he says is so spot on. All of that shit was bullshit. It's all bullshit. None of those people give a damn about this generation. They didn't give a damn about my generation. They certainly don't care about this one. So the more you neglect this generation, the more you neglect the young people of today in America, they're going to keep grasping at the people on the extreme left and extreme right. This is where they're going to go. You haven't given them a fucking choice. You think they're going to line up behind Ted Cruz? That fucking creep? Fuck him. You think they're going to line up behind James Langford? Fuck him too. Do you think they're going to line up behind any of these people? Why would they? They don't give a shit about them. They might run a campaign and go into office talking about all this pie in the sky bullshit they're going to do. They go there and they become just as corrupt as the guy or gal they replaced. It's fucking ridiculous. So don't be mad at the people who line up behind a Mamdani or a Fuentes or whomever. You've given them no choice. This is the alternative. Yeah, it's the alt-right and the alt-left. You're fucking correct. Are they retarded? They probably are. But what's their other choice? The status quo that's got us to this point of a completely debased currency worth nothing in foreign wars that we send money to other countries all over the place? That's where we're at. You have Elon Musk goes in there with Doge and identifies all of these things that you can get rid of basically overnight. None of it happened. Okay, I guess USAID got defunded a little bit, but the rest of it, none of it happened. No one has any sort of desire within Congress to do anything about it because it's going to cost them the votes and it's going to cost them their seat because you can't ever touch Social Security because my Social Security, even though you paid in $30,000 over 40 years and you've already drawn out $60,000 over 10 years, that's not your money. It's not an interest-bearing account, you boomer fuck. Fuck you. Now you're in socialism. All the thing, communism that you talked about, that you hated, that you fought in Vietnam or your brother died for. You just fell right into it. You're the problem. So every time some boomer or some goddamn Gen Xer or even Gen Z or anybody talks about how could you vote for Mamdani, this, that, or the other, I understand it. How could anyone ever line up behind Nick Fuentes and the horrible things he says? I understand it. You've given him no opportunity to go anywhere else. You know, you have a guy like Thomas Massey, who seems to be really on the up and up, seems to be his own man, will vote against Trump, will vote for Trump. He'll go on the podcast, he'll do all the things. I understand he's just some congressman in a small little district there in Kentucky. Now you got the mainstream conservatives trying to run his ass out. How's that work? So you get this little bit in which you might draw from the center and center left, a guy like that who can create a movement and possibly create a small little coalition, even with like Marjorie Taylor Greene and Matt Gaetz and some Lauren Boeberts and APLs and all of these characters. You might not like them 100%, but guess what? They're leading a fucking movement that's about young people. You keep going down this path, and you're going to end up with a Hitlerian figure or a Stalin-like figure who's going to rule us with a fucking iron fist. And guess what? Maybe we deserve it. Maybe I'm for it. But guess what? If you don't fucking change now and come back to the United States and focus on the United States and the people of the United States, you're not going to have a country that you recognize in 20 years. Instead, you're going to have an iron fist tyrant who's going to come down hard on everybody, and one side is going to fucking love it.